What is autodidacting anyway? What does it have to do with homeschooling? What does autodidact mean? Stay tuned and find out how it can set you free. Hi there, mommies. This is Sherry Hayes with momdelights.com. I'm the mom of 15 and I've been homeschooling for over 3 decades. And last time I made a video about homeschool planning and I brought out a lot of different things. One thing I discussed is how you can vary your homeschool planning between concentrated academics, unit studies, and autodidacting. And a lot of people said, what in the world is autodidacting? Can you show us more? Can you explain it? And so I thought I'd take this video to explain it and flesh it out and kind of give some creative ideas about it. And so the first thing I want to do is I want to define autodidact. So autodidact is spelled like this: A-U-T-O-D-I-D-A-C-T. Autodidact. And as you can tell, it comes from the Greek, right? And the first Greek word that it is composed of is the word autos, which means self or of the self or from the self, okay? The second word is didactos, and it means taught. So just taught. So if you think of this word, you've seen this word before, autos, like automobile. And mobile means motion, right? So automobile means self-moving, right? So autodidact means self-taught. Okay, it means self-teaching. Autodidacting makes it kind of a noun, or can be a verb. Autodidacting it means just self-learning or self-teaching. So when we think of autodidacting as concerning homeschooling, what it means is that basically any form of learning, and I'll write this down because, sometimes it's good to take notes. I like taking notes because it helps me remember. Any form of learning which is self-initiated, self-led, or both, okay? So sometimes someone might suggest something to our child. I need you to learn this, but I don't care how you learn it. So that's where it is not self-initiated, but it is self-led. Okay, sometimes a child will say, I want to learn this, and sometimes you have to help direct them as to where to go and what to try. Then other times they decide what they want to learn and they decide how they're going to go about it. So basically that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about some realistic ideas of how to put this in place. Now, some examples of this autodidacting you have experienced in your own life and you just didn't realize it, okay? Learning to ride a bicycle is one of the things that you probably autodidacted and you didn't realize you were doing it, right? I mean, it's necessary that maybe there was an adult there. They had to purchase the bicycle for you. They may have put training wheels on it. Maybe they took you out a few times to give you the ropes, give you some ideas. But basically, you taught yourself how to ride a bicycle. Everybody does, okay? That's one of those things. Okay, a lot of us learn to sketch on our own. I know with in our family, most of the kids, people ask, like, what curriculum did you use to teach your kids to draw and paint? I said, well, they just kind of took some stuff and did it. I mean, we really didn't think very much about it. We just had this stuff available and they would just sit around in groups and they would just do it till they dropped, basically. Okay, so learning to study the Bible. Most of us, we might go to a church or some kind of a symposium or something, or a class. We might learn how different methods to study the Bible, but really it's a very individual thing, isn't it? Studying the Bible. You can learn all kinds of different methods, but God and you guys figure it out the best way that you wanted to study the Bible. That's autodidacting, okay? And then we have the current example that's very prevalent, and that is how baking sourdough bread, right? Very few of us have been required by some outside influence to bake sourdough bread, but we are learning how. Why? Because we are self-initiating something, and we're having to find all the resources. We're having to discipline ourselves to purchase things, to spend time and study, and then we learn how to make sourdough bread. This is autodidacting, okay? All right. So there's just a few things. Playing the guitar. Guitar is easy to pick up on your own. That's another thing that's really easy to autodidact, okay? Are autodidacting and unschooling the same? Because sometimes, when people say self-learning, they automatically kind of cringe because of the negative association with unschooling. Now, I know there are a lot of people who have unschooled successfully with their children, but for most of us, it just doesn't seem to sit right, okay? Unschooling, in essence, is where the children are set free to teach themselves what they want to learn, and the parents have, besides making sure the children are safe and they're fed and clothed and all that, the parents don't really initiate any of the learning that happens in unschooling. They just kind of follow along as the child is led. Okay, for a lot of us, that just totally is too freaky. We don't want to go there. I mean, it's just too much. But then autodidacting is kind of a way where you can enjoy some of the benefits of unschooling without kind of losing control and feeling like you're not really doing good parenting, okay? Now, I'm not accusing unschoolers of being bad parents at all. I know a lot of very kind-hearted, very good parents that have unschooled their children and done it very successfully, as I said. But autodidacting is probably the best, kind of the middle of the road for most of us. Autodidacting, when we put it in homeschool terms, it has to have prerequisites, according to those of us who like to have a little more structure. Okay, so the prerequisites for autodidacting, if you really want to get into the academically sound autodidacting, or when we're actually developing skills. Now, for younger children, what autodidacting is playing. And I know in this world we're supposed to be so nose to the grindstone, and we've got to make every minute count, and we can't get behind, and we know people who put their children in preschools where they learn to speak foreign languages by the time they're 5 years old and everything. Okay, so playing is like, to them, playing is like a cuss word. It's like wasting precious time in a child's life when they could be getting ahead. But that is a lie. Okay, children who are forced to learn every second of their childhood end up burning out, and this has been borne out in lots of different studies. If you ever read anything by Dr. Raymond Moore, they have actually done study after study to show that children who are pushed into close academics at younger ages, they don't do well later on. They get burnt out really easily. So the best thing that younger children can do for autodidacting is just to play pretend games, make houses and cars out of cardboard, and imagine things, and just have a great time. That is the best autodidacting they can be part of. However, once your child can read, okay, that's one of the prerequisites for the funnest kind of autodidacting. When your child can read, okay, this child can then pursue their interests and their passions without needing a lot of parental oversight. Now, you want to, check in every once in a while and make sure they're doing okay and make sure they're not going to, use chemicals and, gas the whole family or something like that. So you want to be apprised of what they're doing. But if they can read, they can find materials. They can find ways to do things that they want to do. That's one of the prerequisites. Also, a child who is going to autodidact has to have a certain amount of self-mastery. Okay, because if you're going to allow your child to pursue something just because they like to do it, you want to make sure they're not wasting that time by, waking up at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and then staying up way, way late, either playing games on the computer or scrolling eternally or social media stuff. That's really not going to help them in the area of autodidacting. When you autodidact, now you could argue that some children will autodidact so they can be really good online doing different things, and I can understand that. But in general, we all understand it in this society we live today, that a lot of time is wasted watching other people do things on the internet rather than participating ourselves, right? It's like a pseudo life. So self-mastery is really important. In order to have really successful autodidact times, you have to make sure that there are routines in place, right? You got to keep your house running smoothly. People have to have 3 squares. They have to eat 3 times a day. They have to have personal hygiene done. They have to help with chores, right? You can't just say, oh, we're just going to learn anything you want to today and then just throw everything to the wind and expect good things to happen. Also, it's really good still to maybe have some read aloud time, etc., when everybody gets together. Okay, now parents also, their role in this autodidacting is getting their children the resources they need to learn what they want to learn. Okay, so let's say that you have a young man who wants to learn about mechanics. Okay, and we're talking about basically the combustion engine, right? So what you can do for this guy, you can give him an old lawnmower and some tools and have him just learn everything he can. And you're the one that provides the mower and the tools, right? And he takes it and he runs with it. I was just watching a video of a mom, and her boys have like an old truck that they work on, and they take parts out and they put them back in and they just mess with it all the time. And that's how they're learning about cars and mechanics and the combustion engine and everything. They're just messing with this old truck. And I guess the truck must run, but it may not be like in the best of shape. So the parents don't really care. It's just an old throwaway truck, but they're having fun learning everything they can about it. And so that's like their autodidact time, right? That's pursuing their own interest. Also, like with girls, you might want to have like some handicraft. Maybe they're into crochet or embroidery, and maybe you don't even know anything about it, but there's so many cool tutorials online where they can find out all they need to know about all this stuff, right? Beading, crochet, embroidery. Maybe they want to write a novel, so they'd have to learn how to do that. That's another thing lots of kids like to do. What if they just wanted to spend a couple weeks just reading a whole bunch of things that they're interested in? Well, you might want to put some limits on that, but it might be a good time. Maybe they're trying to catch up on some really good stuff, and you can make suggestions, but maybe they have a direction that they're just really interested in. Maybe they want to learn all they can about missionaries, and so they read a whole bunch of missionary stories or something like that. Okay, so to nail it down, okay, what a child needs in order to be really successful with autodidacting. They need self-mastery. We talked about that. They need neatness. It's important to be neat, and we'll talk about that here in a minute. And they need studiousness. Okay, that means they need to know how to study. And they need follow-through. Because sometimes a youngster will bite off some huge thing they feel like they really want to do, and they find out it's too much work and they let it go, right? They push it to the side, then they go to the next thing and the next thing, the next thing. They have to learn to follow through. This is part of their character. Okay, now neatness. Okay, we talked about self-mastery, about mastering yourself and your time. Neatness is part of this whole thing because, especially have more than one child, they're going to have materials and projects. And they're going to need to know that they can't just leave it all over the house, whatever they're doing. They're going to have to somehow make it neat so that you all can live together. So milk crates to store tools and different things in is really good, or maybe just projects they're working on. Give them a place where they can store it when everybody's just living life, so that it doesn't get destroyed by little kids or something. And neatness is important. They have to discipline themselves, that's self-mastery, to put things away and to take care of things in between their learning sessions. Okay, studiousness is they need to know how to be able to sit and study. Now, if it's a passion, something they're really interested in, oftentimes this comes naturally. But sometimes it's still it can be a little tricky. So you might have to say, well, listen, do the Pomodoro thing. Say, like, take a half an hour and read and study, and then take 15 minutes and go outside and run around and come back and do another half hour or something like that. So it's good to teach them all these different things, okay? Also, if you're really serious about trying Autodidact, okay, and lots of it is just really organic, okay? So in our home, what'll happen is we will have a time where we're really concentrating on academics, and we will be really intense, and we'll be going and going and going for a number of weeks, and all of a sudden we just all feel so burnt out, right? And we haven't had time to do anything else, and we're just really feeling like we need a break. Then I'll announce, okay, autodidact time, and everybody will cheer, and then we'll sit around and we'll talk about what we want to do. And sometimes what I will do is I'll just let everything naturally wind down, and I'll just let everybody float for a couple of days. Like, say, do we have to do school? I said, nope, taking a break, you guys just chill. And for a couple of days, maybe even a week, everybody will just kind of decompress and relax, and they'll be able to, we'll just get into our home routines, and all of a sudden they'll say, hey mom, I'd like to do so-and-so. Okay, well, let's go to the store. Let's go get you some beads. Let's see what kind of craft materials we have for you to learn that. Another person says, hey mom, do you have a pick? Because I'm trying to learn this riff on the guitar. Okay, so we'll go find a pick, and it'll just kind of happen organically. It's a natural thing for human beings to want to learn, especially young human beings. We all have a desire to learn things. Autodidacting allows your children to do it legitimately, and what it does is it allows you to be able to record it as a legitimate part of your learning scheme, all right? So what happens, especially as your children are learning well and they're developing, they're heading more into the teen years. If you do this as a general rule, what's going to happen is the rest of their academic learning is going to make sense to them. They're going to have a reason to write well, to read well, to be able to do math, because they're going to see how, if they do those things, it will apply to the different interests they have. Especially like for the math will apply to someone. Let's say you have a young man and he's into Estes rockets and he likes to blow those things out. Well, he has to know about aerodynamics. Math is a great part of that, learning all the aerodynamics and having to calculate things. I had one son, and he was developing his own video game, and so he would study physics equations so that he could learn how to make balls bounce in different ways in this one program he was using. And so he would go to work, and he worked as a cart pusher at Sam's Club, and he would actually practice different physics. He would actually experiment with different physics properties using the carts when he was pushing them. We all thought that was hilarious. But anyway, he would tell us the ways he could flip a cart over his head, I guess, because he learned different physics techniques, and this was just like something he'd been studying. I mean, it gets crazy, I know. And so, but autodidacting, what it does, it decompresses kids. It allows them to take their academic learning and apply it. Academics, I can spell, applied, okay? That's what autodidacting is. It's academics applied. So what happens is, when you have to answer to someone, when you want to write this down in a transcript, you take, and let's say that they decided to learn guitar. Okay, so that's their music, right? And you can even call it guitar. I mean, lots of schools offer that stuff. Okay, let's say that they want to do handicraft. Well, there are electives of handicraft in schools, right? Like embroidery, modeling with clay, all those different kinds of fine arts. That's in there too. Let's say they want to do some graphic design. They want to learn like InDesign and Adobe products. You can, that's part of that. We had children that did that. And I've got to tell you, what happens is, this is the cool thing. When you allow your children to have these times of autodidacting and pursuing their own interests, they start developing skills that actually work into their adult lives. This happened not one time, but numerous times with our children. They learned skills by following their own passions that actually furthered them. When they actually went to school, they were further ahead of their peers. One child actually had a professor ask her to stay and teach her the programs using, because she was unfamiliar, and my daughter had hours and hours and hours to study these programs, so she knew the ins and outs. So that's one example. There are a number of examples where our children were actually farther ahead of their peers in their areas of interest because they had as much time as they needed to devote to these things, and autodidacting does that. Okay, it gives your children the ability to follow their passions and their interests, but it also has some structure to it. For one thing, you're not doing it the whole year, right? You're just doing this every once in a while. You intersperse it between times of really concentrated academics and other times when you're doing a unit study as a family or something like that. And when you're doing the autodidacting, you can still have them do some math. You can still keep Bible and math in there. You can even have read aloud time still, but just the rest of the day they have more time to devote to their interests and their passions. So I hope this has given you some ideas of how you can put this into effect in your own family. Like I said, it can be just a natural thing, an organic thing, but it can end up just paying in dividends. It pays for the rest of their life. For one thing, your children are used to teaching them stuff. They don't have to wait for someone to teach them. They can tackle almost anything. This is the information age. They can learn anything their little hearts desire if they have the drive. They can do it, even if you don't have everything they need. It'll give them a reason to want to work, maybe earn some money so they can purchase like more Estes rockets, or purchase an old lawnmower, purchase parts for their lawnmower that they want to fix, maybe put some aftermarket stuff on there and soup it up. So there's all kinds of things that happen when we allow our children to organically follow their passions and desires. And with that, I'd like to give you something more. Okay. So I was listening to a gentleman online, and he was talking about confidence. He was like a trainer for, I think he trained interrogators, all right? And the man said that the way we operate and interact with others is like a pendulum swing, okay? We either, if we're in a social situation where we do not feel, confident, we either collapse or we posture. So collapsing means we kind of get really shy and we go into ourselves and we want to sit over in the corner and say, don't look at me, I don't feel good, right? Or the posturing is, I'm really the best in the room at this, and you should really listen to everything I say because I'm so smart, and aren't I great, and look at me, and la la la, right? Now on the left of this is like a pendulum swing, right? And so in the middle is confidence, and that's where we really want to be, but we too often we either collapse or we posture. Now, on the left of the swing is collapsing. This happens when we are unsure of ourselves and become timid and shrink, and it has a lot to do with people pleasing. On the extreme right is posturing, becoming flatulent, sticking one's chest out, acting sassy, boasting. In the middle is confidence. It doesn't need approval. It doesn't expect anything. It is comfortable in any situation. And this comfortability becomes contagious and gives others more confidence. Now, confidence turns a person from being a black hole at consuming all the energy in the room to being the anchor, the leader, and that person is actually the servant of the room. Okay. Confidence can't be faked because it oozes out of a person. Okay. When we come into a social situation, if we come needy for strength, for character, for direction, for self-mastery, for love, for approval, for self-worth, for money, for promotion, for absolvement, for security, then we tend to suck the life out of others. When we enter a social situation with confidence, we can become a servant. We don't need anything from anyone. right? So if we're confident, we don't need anything. We don't need approval from people. We don't really need for people to like us, right? We're confident because we're comfortable, and others can derive confidence from us. So instead of being sucking the air out of the room, we bring oxygen in. Okay, the Bible says our hope in God anchors our souls, our minds, our wills, and our emotions. When we are anchored in God, when we are fully convinced He is completely trustworthy and all of His promises are true, then we can become comfortable in any situation. In this confidence, we can offer the same confidence to others. No longer are we vying for position or people-pleasing. We neither collapse nor posture. And I wrote that wrong. We simply rest in God and operate, saying and doing what is necessary, yet without fear, right? The gentleness of Christ is based in confidence. When we understand it is God's responsibility to persuade and our responsibility to walk with Him and be a witness, not witness with our mouths only, right? This becomes less of something we are faking vehemently and more of a natural outcome of who we are. Another synonym for this would be authentic or genuine, true, representing one's true nature or beliefs, true to oneself or to the person identified, real or genuine and not counterfeit, accurate in representation of the facts, trustworthy and reliable. So lots of times when we endeavor to have more than the regular amount of children or to homeschool, we can become insecure about it because we're not really sure about what we're doing to begin with. Really, we're not. We have so many questions. We're doing this out of obedience, but we have more questions than we have answers. But if we have started on this journey with an understanding that it's God leading us, so He's responsible to make it work, and we don't have to try to make everything work, and we don't have to understand everything once we do it, but we're trusting in Him, then that gives us confidence. So when we get in front of other people and they start asking us the 20 questions, why are you having all those kids? Well, what are you doing with homeschooling? Aren't you afraid they won't be socialized? Oh, I heard you keep your kids home and homeschool them just because you're lazy and you need the free labor. And I told somebody once, well, if I was that lazy, I'd send him to school for free babysitting. But anyway, I've had so many different questions. And when I was insecure, I would become defensive and I would start posturing, or I would just sulk and then I would think bad things about them. But once I became really comfortable in my own skin and I knew beyond a doubt that it was God leading me, and whatever they asked or whatever they said, I didn't have to let it bother me at all. Then I wasn't defensive anymore. They didn't owe me anything. They don't owe me understanding or approval. They can think what they want to, but it doesn't change who I am. This is who I am. This is what I'm doing. I feel confident in this choice because God has led me here. Therefore, I don't have anything to defend. God's my defender. Well, if you don't like it, that's okay. If you do like it, I'm okay with that too. I mean, I don't owe you anything and you don't owe me anything. I'm just fine. I owe no man anything but to love him. And then when we're at that point, then we have true confidence. And you know what? It actually, it either incenses the person and they show their true colors, or it makes them comforted. And they think, well, there must be something to it because they're comfortable in their confidence. So let's move on. So anyway, I hope that little bit of advice, that biblical advice, will bless you today. I know there's all kinds of scriptures we could take out, but we'll just keep that short and sweet, right? So like and subscribe and ring bells and click stars and leave good reviews. And I love you, and you have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.